I'm Councillor Caroline Culver, Chairman of the Scrutiny Commission. Welcome to our meeting this evening. Members of the Commission present this evening are Councillors Anthony Amatharaj, Dominic Bowick, Paul Dick, Billy Drummond, Ross McKinnon, who I think will be joining us shortly, Eric Pattenden, Christopher Reid and Martha Vickers. Councillors Jeff Brooks and Stuart Gawley are also in attendance. Council officers present to advise and support the meeting are Joseph Holmes, Acting Chief Executive Officer, Sarah Clark, Acting Executive Director for Resources, John Winstanley, Service Director for the Environment, Kofi Adugyamfi, Service Lead for the Climate Change, Daniel Warren, Waste Manager, Nicola Thomas, Service Lead for Legal and Democratic. And also Gabrielle Mancini joins us. Welcome, Gabrielle. Anyone I've missed off? No. Okay, thank you. Gordon Oliver is clerk for the meeting this evening and Thomas Radbourne is the Zoom host. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed on YouTube so members of the public are able to follow proceedings. If we hear the fire alarm, we must leave the building immediately via the emergency exits. The assembly point is the Dolphin Car Park. If the lockdown alarm sounds, we will await instructions from officers. We will adjourn the meeting until such time as it is safe to proceed. Finally, I would like to take the opportunity to remind members that we are subject to the Council's Code of Conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. We may not always agree with one another, but I would ask that in our disagreements, we are always respectful of others' views. Do members have any questions about the way in which this meeting will be conducted before we proceed? No, thank you. Moving on to apologies. Do we have any apologies, please?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Jeremy Cottam has given us apologies and Councillor Billy Drummond is substituting.
Thank you. Welcome, Billy. Moving on to item 2, the minutes. Can I check, please, if members are happy with the minutes of the 11th of February, which are in the agenda pack? Any comments? Okay, could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Dick, seconder. Councillor Pattenden, thank you. Sorry, yeah, let's go to a vote. I always forget that. All those in favour? Anyone against? Abstention? Okay, thank you, that's passed. Thank you very much. Actions from previous minutes, previous meetings. So I've got here, members are asked to note the progress in relation to the actions. Point to note, action 218, the programme office has confirmed that project closure statements are available for the following. Teach West Berks, SLA online procurement for schools traded services, Laburnum, which is to convert an unused former community space to accommodation for adult social care central locality team and their equipment, and Market Street development, Granger development. We're also asked to note action 219. It will not be possible to bring the report on proposed changes to the scrutiny structure to the Scrutiny Commission, but it will go to Governance Committee on the 29th of April before going to full council in May. The current proposal is to move to 3 scrutiny committees covering the following: resources and place, children and young people, health and adult social care. I think it's disappointing that the Scrutiny Commission won't get an opportunity to look at that before the full council meeting in May. Councillor Brooks.
I'm still waiting to see papers to support that point of view, so I wouldn't take that as read at the moment if I were you, Chairman.
You wouldn't what, sorry?
I'm still waiting to see papers, final papers about that proposal, proposed structure. So I wouldn't at this stage take it as a final position.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
You read it out as if this is what's going to happen. It's still being worked through.
It's in my chairman's notes.
Well,
so
it wasn't in my notes, and I'm the leader. So
thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. And the final note here, it says a number of the other actions are on hold pending the change to the scrutiny structure. Any comments on the actions from previous meetings, please, colleagues? Councillor Bowick.
Thank you, Chairman. The 89, 90 and 91 libraries review. I wonder what the action has morphed into. This goes back to March 23, so 2 years ago. What is the action? I'm sure it's not those 3 individual items, because there's a wholesale review of the library service. Is it action to continue with the review, or what? And if I'm right, and that's what it's waiting for, how do we know what the date, when we can expect to see that review? And it occurs to me that this action table would benefit from us, from Scrutiny, having visibility of the corporate programme schedule, if that's what it's called these days.
Yeah.
Because, we need to be assured, don't we, that action is taking place for this and others.
Yes, no, I agree. Is that something that we could get access to, Mr. Oliver, corporate programme?
I'd need to liaise with the relevant officer, I think, unless Gabrielle Mancini's got a comment.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a sensible comment. Thank you, Councillor Bowick. Did you want to?
And there's another point as well.
Okay.
I mean, without dwelling on the specific action, but it is long outstanding. And for other actions, I wonder whether we should have a target or a date in this table that at least would flag up concerns if they're not looking as though they're delivering in a timely fashion. So another column, target date.
Yes, I think that's a sensible suggestion.
Can I continue?
Yeah, and then I'll bring in Councillor Pattenden. Yep.
Oh, I was going to talk about other points, so I don't know
Okay.
if Councillor Pattenden wants to respond.
Well, related to your point, Councillor Bowick, I think it might be useful as well to have a column that says when the last action was taken, because maybe some of these have been on here for a while and not much has been happening with them. So I think that would be a useful piece of information as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowick, did you want to make further points?
Yes.
Yeah.
116. What's the next action that we can expect to see in respect of this one, is my question. Because there's a lot there about, requiring funding, see another question somewhere else, business case being finalised. What's the next action that's going to be taken?
I might bring in Councillor Gawley at this point, actually, if you have a response to that.
Yeah, so for this one, there is an idea on the forward plan around the Section 19 report, which includes this topic around funding for the potential Northbrook flood alleviation schemes. So that is the next action, is the individual decision on those priorities.
Thank you. I'll continue. 141. And I guess this is something that Stuart Gurley can help us with, Councillor Gurley can help us with. Meetings, it relates to a motion passed in March last year. I can't remember what it was. But it says meetings, the update is meetings are continuing in collaborative fashion, which is great. But again, what's the next action? More meetings, or indeed, what we're trying to achieve here?
Yeah, so this one relates to Thames Water again, and I think we reported progress at the last scrutiny on this topic, and we discussed this. We are continually in dialogue with Thames Water over improvements of their infrastructure across West Berkshire. So, you could drop that one off because it's BAU now that we're actively engaged in, so we could close that one off potentially.
BAU being business as usual.
Sorry, yes, yeah. It's we've got plans in progress with some of the larger infrastructure requirements.
great. So that's 141. Are you happy with that response, councillor Bowick?
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, great. Thank you both.
And perhaps would that also apply to 143?
So 143 is probably best to stay open because we are reliant on the Environment Agency deploying some of their pollution testing equipment, but it is tied up with other activity at the moment, but it is something that I continue to chase. So happy to leave that one open as it is something that we haven't quite closed yet.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry. Could I bring councillor Dick in at this point? Is that on that particular point, councillor Dick?
Not really, no.
No.
It's more general,
Okay.
but
You happy to?
Thank you.
Okay.
This, we've just established the table's not fit for purpose. We shouldn't have it if we have to turn around and say to someone in the chamber, by the way, what's going on there? And he was able to say, we're doing something collaborative with whoever it is. Well, if that was in here, it just looks, I don't like mustard. There's too much mustard in this table. It's all mustard. And how do you ever get things off there? So what I was going to ask about inevitably was 178 and 180, which is a by high needs block. And someone was going to bring us some information and someone else was going to invite somebody else. And it's just, we're not going, I don't think we should do it now, but I'm happy to leave it with you and sit down and really sharpen this table up, get rid of some of it. And let us have, every time we see it, it should have something new in it against every item, or the item should be complete.
Yeah, fair comment. On those 2 points in particular, Anne-Marie Dodds did ask me if the 2 items could be bumped to the July meeting because of Ofsted inspections, and I said I was happy with that. I thought it was an entirely reasonable request, but yeah.
Again, if that was there, I wouldn't have asked.
Yeah. Well, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so it's going to the July meeting due to Ofsted inspections. Yeah, so, yeah, thank you. Councillor Bowick, did you want to continue with your points?
156. Thank you. What 156? There's an action here to check the link between affluence and waste volume. It seems a bit of an obscure action here. I mean, I don't know how, is it something that's worthy of a action point in a high profile meeting like this? Just not sure why it's there. And doesn't look as though it's going to be dealt with anytime soon. That's just an observation. I don't need to have an explanation.
Perhaps Mr. Warren could cover that off when he talks later about the waste strategy. Do you have access in front of you, Mr. Warren, to the list of actions from previous meetings?
No, I don't, but I do remember this one.
Okay.
We're waiting for DEFRA to release 23-24 data, which should be at some point this month.
Okay.
And once we have that, we'll update our the action.
Okay. So maybe we can say in there, Mr. Oliver, that we're expecting it this month.
Chairman, I guess I don't understand why we need to know about the link between affluence and waste. I mean, I'm sure there is a link, but
I think it must have come up as a recommendation for more information at the last time we looked at the waste strategy.
And any idea of what we would do if we learnt that more affluent people recycle more or less or what?
We'd probably have to go back to the minutes and check why it was that we made that recommendation, to be honest.
More? I'll leave it there.
Okay.
But I appreciate Councillor Dick's suggestion that we do some work on this and get it smarter.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible suggestion. Do other members have any comments on this item? No. Thank you very much, colleagues. Item 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest for this evening's agenda? No.
I use a black bin.
Thank you, Councillor Drummond. Okay, any petitions received?
No, Chairman, no petitions received.
Okay, thank you. Item 6, devolution and local government reorganisation. I'd like to invite Councillor Brooks and Mr. Holmes to present on this, please.
I'll let Joseph Holmes begin.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity to come along here this evening. So this report did head to the executive last month, but our submission on local government reorganisation through South Oxfordshire and Vale of Whitehorse has councils was made yesterday, and that was released for our special executive papers for next week. So I don't expect you to have read all of that, but that does sort of set out a proposal for an option which the council will be seeking to engage with sort of residents, members, staff, businesses, and many different groups from across the area and beyond into that sort of proposed Ridgeway area in the coming months. When this report was written for the executive, the letter which went to Oxfordshire leaders had not been prepared. So the timescales that we were running to at the time that this were written were somewhat different, and have certainly been brought forward far faster than we were originally thinking for then. This paper also, includes the full white paper in there and some of the parameters that the government putting in place in respect to local government reorganisation. They're looking for councils to cover a population of 500,000, and they're looking at strategic authorities that cover a population of at least 1.5 million people, and includes some of the key tables in there around the different elements of strategic authorities, through from foundation to full mayoral strategic authorities there as well. So hopefully that gives you a flavour as a sort of, as a scrutiny commission of the initial proposals. I think, as I said, things have moved somewhat faster than we're anticipating when this was sort of first scheduled to come along to the scrutiny commission with the special executive next week.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brooks.
Well, members will have heard me say at the executive meeting this was an opportunity to talk to other leaders across both Oxford and Berkshire, both about the strategic authority and a local government review, as in a different unitary structure. Events are moving quite quickly, and then I think they'll perhaps slow down. The government invited the Oxford councils, district, city and county, to put forward proposals for local government review, different unitary structures, with the districts disappearing. We see Buckinghamshire were ahead of this a couple of years ago with their district councils and gone. So we were approached by the Vale of Whitehorse and South Oxford District Council to engage in discussions. They have to put in, the whole of Oxford councils have to put in a bid by the 21st of March. And we've discussed things with them. And next week's special executive, papers out very, very quickly, will propose that we add ourselves, we combine for a joint submission for a unitary council involving West Berkshire, the Vale of Whitehorse and South Oxfordshire. If that finds favour, and the South Oxfordshire and Vale are having committee meetings of council as well, but if all that goes ahead, then that submission will take place and will go into MHCLG and take time for them to consider. Further work will be done in the summer, where we will engage with the public, with the business, with stakeholders, right through the community to see their view, to seek their views. So that is one option for our council. Other options may well be to look to the east. They have not been ruled out, but there was an opportunity to support a solution. And I feel we should take it, subject to a vote in this chamber of the executive next week. I'm also hearing, it's not a secret, you can read it in the MJ, the Management Journal and other papers, that the ministry, MHCLG, are now saying small unitaries, you might want to slow down. We've got a lot on our plate. We won't be asking you for solutions or submissions particularly quickly. So if we are not successful with the Vale and with South Oxfordshire, we may be in a holding pattern within Berkshire for the unitary reorganisation for some time. On the other side of the coin, I think it is more easy and quicker for the government to support strategic authority mayoral outcomes. I think they'll move more rapidly, and the leaders of Berkshire and Oxfordshire will continue with that work apace. So that's helps the introduction. I'll take questions. It is moving rapidly, and I thought we ought to get aboard.
Great, thank you very much, gentlemen, for that introduction. Any questions from members? Councillor Reid.
I just think residents are quite interested when I've been raising this at parish councils, but there's been a big question mark on the level of financial devolution. I was just wondering whether Mr. Holmes or Councillor Brooks would like to respond to those questions and really the level of financial devolution.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. So in respect of financial devolution, certainly to the strategic authority, what could become a mayoral authority, I think the government will look to put in specific integrated settlements, integrated sort of grant settlements into that organisation with the new powers and services that are sort of devolved to that organisation. It wouldn't be for predominantly the services we run, like sort of social care and sort of education support planning and waste, for instance. It would be for those new services, those new schemes which emerge. So there will be a level of financial devolution there in respect of the functions that we have and the sort of unitary functions. Government undertaking a fundamental review of local government finance this year, so it will be that which will determine kind of the financial future of all councils and how that changes. There's not been a huge amount of talk around, I suppose, financial devolution from, say, additional tax raising powers. There is a mayoral precept, so eventually if there was a mayor, then some mayors levy a specific precept there. There has, tax increment financing is starting to re-emerge and be discussed again a little bit more. You see the sort of the notion of sort of a tourist tax is being discussed, and I think there's a small number of councils have started to look at that as well. But significant financial devolution, certainly from a taxation side of things, I don't think at the moment is not being discussed too much.
Councillor Vickers.
I know it's really early days, but I was thinking about the practical aspects of this, about the sharing of staff. Are we looking at lots of redundancies? I hope not. And also where councils will be situated. Are we looking at relocation of staff and resources? Because that's quite a big step to plan for, isn't it?
I think I'd like to come in first. I really I have been through this before, and it can be very unsettling, obviously, for staff. But it's far too early to know how you would share services. Clearly, there will be economies of scale if you have a larger council. There is something to be said for the parishes and towns perhaps stepping up and doing more because they'll be closer in any reorganisation than their unitary council to the people. But a highways engineer will still be needed in an area to sort that area's highways out. Social workers will be needed to help older folk and children families. Planning engineers will be needed everywhere, and we struggle to get them. So above the cadre of senior management, I think it's business as usual, Councillor Vickers. And that's a message I will keep saying to people in our authority. But there will be opportunity as well, of course. Change equals opportunity. But it's very early to say how this might be structured.
And with regard to location, Councillor Brooks, Councillor Vickers' question about that, have we had any thoughts about?
No conversations whatsoever at this stage,
Yeah.
no.
Okay,
No conversations at all.
thank you. Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Chairman, and apologies for lateness. I blame First Great Western delaying my wife getting home, but I got to spend an extra 20 minutes with my 2 young boys, so your loss is my gain. I just want to put on record that there is certainly an advantage to us as West Berkshire residents, actually, of getting ahead of the curve of the rest of Berkshire on this. So if this proposal was to come to pass and the government gave it the green light, we would end up potentially having a council in place, Ridgeway Council or a similar name, by 2028. And that would give us a great deal of advantage in terms of attracting staff and retaining staff, because you would have a settled potential career trajectory there. And the second thing I wanted to mention was actually to give credit to Councillor Brooks. And, he and I do a lot of sparring. And I give him a lot of stick, but I have to give him credit where credit's due. He didn't need to establish a devolution advisory group. And in fact, he didn't even need to run this past the executive. As leader of the council, he had the entitlement to simply submit a proposal on his own. And he didn't do that. He recognised that this is a decision that will have ramifications on residents for probably decades to come. And he opened it up and he invited myself and my colleagues to help advise. And I think he needs credit for that. And, we're not all about just opposition for opposition's sake sometimes. So I think credit where it's due. I think it helped that the advisory group probably gave him the answer that he wanted, but he didn't know that was going to be the case up front. So yeah, credit to the leader. I think it has been a cross-party process. I think we all know where we would like the wind to be going here. And hopefully the government will get the green light.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Credit can be in short supply at times. I'll take it. I'll bank it. I'll thank Councillor McKinnon for it. When you're looking at a decision that is maybe a 40-year decision, it shouldn't be monopolised by one political party. And that is why I welcome other groups here, other politicians of other political associations being involved. This is a big decision for this area. But if it does find favour with the government, then by golly, we get certainty more quickly than many other areas, and we can plan accordingly and we can keep delivering good things. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Councillor Brooks, you mentioned about parish and town councils and how they might be able to perform a bigger role. In Jim McMahon's letter, it talks about genuine opportunity for neighbourhood empowerment. Have we given any thought to how we would go about doing that? Because I'm very conscious there are some parish and town councils who are fully staffed, got enough councillors, very able, have been doing the job for a long time, etc. But there are perhaps other parish councils that don't have a full complement of councillors and perhaps don't have the skills or the experience to take on a lot of extra things. We're going to be doing consultation. Do we have a plan for how we engage with the parishes and towns to try and educate them about what's happening and to empower them and to get them to give some thought to what they might do in the future?
That process will begin at the next district parish conference, which I believe is on the 30th of March.
Okay.
And I've been engaging with parishes since I got here, visiting parish councils, and that'll continue apace. I think we need more direction from AHCLG, because where there are parishes within counties. I mean, for instance, Reading doesn't have any parishes, so it's a mixed bag again. The MHCLG should be encouraging them to step up, but helping them with the finance as well. Of course, parishes can precept; they can raise money more easily than we can, and therefore empower themselves. But there's a real opportunity for them, and I hope some of them, the larger ones, have the ambition to step up. My offer to them, the service catalogue, they are stepping up to that now, and we'll continue to build that out. So a real opportunity for them, I feel.
Right, thank you. And oh, beg your pardon. Sorry, Mr. Holmes.
No, thank you, Chairman. I think just to add to that as well, I think there's some really good case studies from around the country around sort of best practice on engaging with town and parish councils. So that's for us as officers to do it as well, to help bring into that engagement piece over the spring and summer.
Great, thank you. And with regard to consultation, do we know what form that might take? Is it going to be a formal public consultation? Will there be meetings that people can come along to find out more?
Yes, certainly. Again, take myself back 30 years. Newbury District Council had a marquee in the marketplace to talk about them becoming this council, the district council as it was, becoming a unitary council. And I remember walking past and they said, "Hello, have you heard anything about local government reorganisation? Have you seen the paperwork?" I said, "I helped write it." So I remember that type of thing existed then and should exist again. And I mean, just the general point, we ought to get out in the community more to consult. When we do consult with Gazebo and invite people to come and talk to us. So, yes is the answer, but there isn't a plan written yet because we got to agree next week that we're actually going to support the bid.
Yeah. Have we given any thought to the local plans? Because my understanding is that South Oxfordshire and Vale have got a combined local plan that has been agreed. Obviously, that's bearing in mind Angela Rayner's concerns about housing and the fact we want to build something like 500,000 extra houses a year. There's been a lot of development in Didcot, for example, and we have constraints in this district because of the National Landscape, AWE and others. Have we had any discussions with them about the local plans and how they might be integrated together? Because I think there might be concern from residents in all three authorities about the impact on them from housing development.
Again, I think this is a little premature, Chair, with respect.
Okay.
Mr. Holmes, I just don't think we got into that level of detail at this stage, although officers have been working together, so you may know a little bit more than me.
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. So we have been assessing where everyone is on the different stages of the local plan, what the level of housing demand and delivery has been, but it will undoubtedly be something that we will be discussing further over the spring and summer. To try and see what those different stages are, and I think that would be the same, not just the local plan, but for lots of our policies and sort of procedures, is looking at how where we are across all of those all of those three authorities involved.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any other questions, colleagues? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Holmes and Councillor Brooks, for that. Gabrielle, did you want to add anything? I'm conscious you've been working on this. Okay, thank you. Do we have any recommendations we want to make to our colleagues about these discussions going forwards? Any particular concerns we've heard from our parishes and towns about issues that they would like to make sure are taken into account? No? Okay, great. Thank you very much, colleagues. Moving on to waste management strategy. I would like to invite the officers now to present this and Councillor Gawley as well, however you wish to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've just got a few opening remarks and then Mr. Ward has got some slides to kind of give members a bit of an update on where we are and what's contained within the strategy in a bit more detail. I think first off, thank you to all of the residents who took time to complete the extensive consultation that went out before Christmas. It saw over 5,000 responses, which is, I think, probably one of the records for a consultation run by the strategy. Run by the council. So thank you for everyone that engaged in that, and thanks to all those that have been involved in bringing the strategy this far already. It's been through EAG a few times and some kind of engagement sessions earlier, I think back in 2023. So a lot of work's gone into it to get it this far. So thank you for that. The draft waste strategy is a holistic strategy that sets out routes of travel to improve our recycling services and recycling rates through to the end of the current PFI. And it also reflects the changes and potential changes in kind of national policy, really. There are a couple of key points just to make you aware of, and just a few takeaways really that I think just to kind of remind members that there are plenty of opportunities. Analysis has shown that 42% of black bin residual waste could be recycled through one of the council's existing routes, and food waste alone accounts for 22% of that. We remain committed to expanding and improving our curbside offering, making it easier for residents to do the right thing. And recently we launched our pots, tubs and tray services at the curbside back at the end of January. I think this is a really ambitious strategy, and I'm really chuffed that it continues to aim towards and achieve net zero operations by 2030, looking to be carbon negative by 2040, and really ensuring that the waste journey as a whole plays its part in improving things for our environment. I think it's important for me to highlight that, you know, I know there are things that are contained in this strategy that make people nervous. I get it, I hear it, but I wouldn't be proposing it if I didn't think it was achievable, or where we can mitigate some of those concerns and nervousness. And I'm hoping that some of the information we share again tonight will help do so. But I think it's important to call out that improving our recycle rates is a collective effort across the council and across West Berkshire, and keys to that are good communication, engagement, education and support. And we're going to be keen continuing to improve how we perform, as well as help all to understand more about what we can reduce, reuse and recycle. So I hope I'll pass over to Mr. Warren, and I hope the next few slides will help share a bit more information on where we are with the waste strategy. Thank you very much, Chair.
Sorry, apologies. There we go. Great, yeah, so thank you, everyone. So I want to start off, first of all, just a reminder of the national picture in terms of our current recycling rate. So we're faring quite well with the improvements we've made over the last couple of years, such as increasing our mini recycling centres and our vape recycling, household waste recycling centres, mattress recycling, as well as our introduction of food waste and more recently pots, tubs and trays, which is projected to get us to a recycling rate of 54% for this year. Unfortunately, national data hasn't been released for 23-24 yet, so we can't quite see how we're faring with everyone else, but we tend to be, we expect to be still ahead of the curve. However, when it comes to the waste production and waste per person, we are higher than the South East and English average. You can see we've started to increase again over the last year, this year, to 450 kilograms per person. Again, we're yet to see whether that's following a national trend or whether it's just unique to us here in West Berkshire. Councillor Gourlay mentioned a minute ago, 42% of our refuse bin could be recycled within the current curbside collection services. That doesn't include the HWRCs or the mini recycling centres. That is literally the curbside collection service. So, yeah, it's hopefully pretty self-explanatory. In terms of, with this graph, I'm trying to demonstrate our journey since we started recycling in 1996 in West Berkshire and the capacity we provide to residents per week. I appreciate it's quite a lot of data and information on there. But just to give an example, we can see in 96, we had our 2 40-litre bins and it was collected weekly. Coming to 2011, when we introduced garden waste mixed with food waste collections. 2018, when the garden waste became a chargeable service. Through to 2022, when we introduced food waste. With the last two graphs kind of showing what is available to residents, because you don't have to only have one box, one bag for recycling, you can have as many as you need. I mentioned earlier to some of our recent service improvements, and it's just another image of that for you to see. So when it comes to the development of the strategy, our previous strategy ended in 2022. It was adopted in 2001 when our recycling rate was 11%. So we've come a long way since then. The strategy obviously focuses on upcoming changes in UK legislation, such as the extended producer responsibility, simpler recycling, the deposit return scheme, and the emissions trading scheme. So there's a lot for us to think about. And we've also been supported during this whole process by Eunomia, who've helped us develop the strategy and helped us develop the consultation. We're now nearing the end of our, we're now around here in terms of the internal governance, getting towards the end, hopefully, of the process. Just a quick overview of our visions and key themes for the waste strategy. So achieving 60% recycling rate by 2030, reducing waste production, reducing carbon, keeping our streets clean and tidy, and setting an example. And then on to the consultation. So the consultation took place September to November. Over 5,000 responses. We held drop-in sessions at all of our local libraries. A really good response rate, and we're really happy with the number of people taking part. Just over 50%, 52% almost for our ambitions were just about right in terms of the strategy. 35 thinking it was too ambitious, with just under 13% not thinking it wasn't ambitious enough. We've then asked a question, which a number of councils have asked when they've carried out a similar consultation, as to how households would be able to manage their recycling waste. I think it's important to understand, if it's a yes or a no, or what if, what else could we do? So where do we need to, where does the focus need to go? So we can see from here that it may be, although it's challenging at certain times of year. So how do we address that better if we do adopt this proposal? The last two bits I'm showing from the consultation was just the question of how full are your black bins on one collection day. I think it's about 47% of people said they had space in their black bin on collection day already. And that was before we introduced pots, tubs and trays. And then the last question on here was, do you agree or disagree that 3 weekly black bin collections will help increase recycling and reduce waste? And it was a clear no. 71% of people don't think the proposal will help increase recycling and reduce waste production. A bit more detail on 3 weekly collections. So just wanted to make it clear that we're not, the proposal doesn't affect households that share bins. So people who live in flats and have a communal collection, they'll remain weekly. It doesn't change the frequency of the other curbside collections, such as the weekly food waste and the fortnightly recycling and garden waste service. There are a number of other councils who currently operate 3 weekly collections and are planning it. There's a list on the screen for you on there. And the councils we've spoken to have all seen a decrease in the waste produced, and they've all seen an increase in recycling rate. So I think what we're looking for with this proposal is to make sure our services are more efficient by making sure the right waste is in the right bin, and helping to reduce the financial impact of the emissions trading scheme, and improving our effectiveness and efficiency for the extended producer responsibility. This shows the refuse bin capacity elsewhere. The green are the councils who currently operate a 3 weekly bin collection, and the blue ones are the Berkshire authorities who all operate a 2 weekly collection. You can see we're at the end. We offer currently 120 litres per week, which is way above everybody else. And if we move to 3 weekly, it would take down to 80 litres per week, which is still higher than a number of other authorities who provide 3 weekly, and still higher than Reading, who provide a 2 weekly collection service. So this is the overview of the services and support we offer to residents. So obviously we have our curbside recycling collection with numerous different streams that we collect from the curbside, including batteries now and textiles. We have our 2 HWRCs and our 9 mini recycling centres. The mini recycling centres are available for small electrical items, cartons and textiles. Some others have the banks are plastic and card and paper as well. We also offer a bulky collection service for up to 5 items, where residents can come together if they want to, where we'll come to the property and pick up larger items for a fee. We also offer real reusable nappies free of charge. We give a starter pack out to anybody who's had a newborn baby, and we're continuing with that. And then we also offer we'll signpost people to the Community Furniture Project, Love Food Hate Waste, and the Repair Cafe to help them with the waste. And if residents, are doing all of that and they still struggle with their black bin capacity, we will help. We're here to offer advice. We do go to people's houses and properties to see what we can do to help. And if it does come to it, they're doing all they can to recycle. And if they don't have enough room in their bin, we can provide, and we do provide extra capacity. We do provide bigger bins. And then finally, if the proposal does go through, in terms of how we'll communicate the change, we'll do as much as we can. We'll do drop-in sessions, we'll do direct mail, social media, bin hangers, and everything we can to make sure everyone gets the message. Because it's really, really important, and we'll do, we will be providing calendars in hard copy print as well to people, so it won't just be online. People will be able to get access to that if needed. And there's an example of a bin sticker that we're looking at developing for the black bins to replace the one we put out a few years ago, just to encourage people to make use of the recycling services. And that was the end, and it for me.
Right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Councillor Dick.
Thank you, and thank you, gentlemen, for that. This is a high-level stage in the game, and thank you for the information. I don't want to drag it down to detail because that's to come, but the 3-week thing's compelling numbers-wise, isn't it? There's no question about that, so keep going there. The only thing I was a little bit anxious about, I have experience elsewhere of the trolley system, and I can see different properties, different, there are problems with what we have at the moment. But my experience of the trolley system in 2 other authorities is that the capacity is much less for recycled items than we have currently. So that would seem to me to be a very negative thing if that was to be blanketed. I'll keep quiet now. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, and thank you for that report. Yes, there's obviously a lot of planning gone into this, and it's good to see the consideration of how we communicate what's going to happen. I think I brought this up before, but there's obviously the response to the consultation shows how engaged people are in recycling. It's one of the things they sort of feel they can physically do. And so it's great that we got such a good response. But there is a concern about certain areas of the community, obviously normally with people who are a bit preoccupied with bigger problems in their lives, and recycling tends to come quite low down the agenda. And are we considering giving them a little bit of extra help and support? And you mentioned drop-ins for advice. I'm not quite sure where you're dropping in or who's dropping in where, but could we actively engage with some of these communities? And I'm sure you know the areas where you see more bins overflowing than you do elsewhere. And also, this has been brought up before, the challenge about large families with disposable nappies come the summertime and all of this sort of thing. And I'm just wondering how other councils who've already been doing the 3-week weekly recycling, and I'm sure there's some of them, whether they've had particular problems. There is a remark about giving away real nappies, I think somewhere there in the report, which is very generous, but you're not saying, and we will provide the laundry service. And having washed real nappies in the past, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, actually. So I'm quite sympathetic to people who use disposable nappies. If you've got a laundry service to go with your real nappies, fine. But I would promote real nappies to those who want to deal with them, but I can fully understand why people don't. And also dog waste, if we're reducing our dog waste bins, there's going to be more dog waste possibly going into black bins. So, I mean, I don't want to put it down or anything, but I'm just thinking, have we considered all of these things, and have other councils had experience and addressed these things in different ways? Is there any way of giving extra help or extra, means collections to people who are struggling with this sort of waste?
Would you like to respond to that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, certainly given consideration to all of those. Where we get the struggles people have and the challenges we all have in terms of dealing with waste and nappies and dog waste isn't always pleasant. In terms of speaking to other councils who have adopted 3 weekly, they haven't raised any issues or concerns around it and how they're managing it. It tends to be the extra capacity policy that we already provide is something similar to what they do. They don't tend to do any more than that. So we continue with that support that we provide, and as well as going around to people's houses, we do. If we get a request now, we'll go around and we'll go around and we'll go through people's bins with them if they want to, and we can tell them, what you can and can't recycle to try and offer that assistance.
I think just to echo that, I think, like I said at the top, I wouldn't support or propose it if I didn't think it was possible. I myself have got 2 young boys that have literally just left or leaving nappies, so I get it. I get the concerns, and I think there is a case of making sure that we're responsible for how we dispose of that waste. I've got 3 indoor cats that use cat litter, so again, fully aware of the challenges that come with cats, and I think I myself have a medical condition that requires me to dispose of sensitive medical waste in a black bin, but I make sure that I manage that and I deal with that in the right way to enable it. And again, I'm a big, I believe we can do this. I think I get the nervousness, but I also know how dedicated a team we have here at the council that really do want to help people. We want to make sure that we do the right thing for residents. And we've got to show that leadership to be able to do it, but also support and help mitigate when we do have those challenges. So if we move forward with this proposal, we will continue to listen and continue to work to mitigate these challenges, as we do for our extra capacity requirements and support we offer at the moment, which are robust and exist already.
Thank you. Councillor Mathuraj.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Vaughan, and thank you, Councillor Gawley, for that presentation. And I think from the data provided, it looks like we are better. West Berkshire is doing really better, and we can do more with this proposal. I just have a couple of questions regarding the 3 weekly, if I may, all in one go, and then officers can answer. You mentioned the flats and communal bins won't be affected, so that will be weekly, and the normal households will be proposing a 3-week one. So often we see flats are nested within the individual household. So would it not create a disparity that one set of place where within that community, the bins are collected weekly and the other ones are not fortnightly, but 3 weekly? So there is a possibility of disparity. How you are going to address that? And the next question I would say is if during the holiday period bin collection, like Christmas and Easter times, the bin collection is delayed to accommodate Veolia's, the contractor's time for holidays. Absolutely correct. I agree with that. But with this proposal of 3 weekly one, so during holiday period, if it falls after that 3 weekly one, so we are looking at potentially a 3.5 week bin collection. Yeah. So it creates that additional, I would say, more extra waste to be collected after that schedule. So how are we going to address that thing? And then finally, my other question on this one is this could potentially be creating more fly tipping. So there is a possibility of people would say that my bin is getting full, I'm going to try and put my waste in the fly tip it, which is wrong, obviously, but there's a possibility. And then there is a real possibility of the public bins, the parks and the public bins be getting overfilled. It will be filled. So how, on one place, we are trying to delay this household collection. On the other end, we are looking at a real possibility of our public bins being overflow. So how are we planning to deal with that? So those are my 3 questions, all in those aspects of there is a possibility that's happening. I'm not saying this would happen, but these are concerns from residents, and obviously I've wanted to raise it to your officer's attention to get some clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughan.
Sorry, Chairman, I have one question on the receptacles, providing receptacles. I would do that one.
Okay.
This one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Vaughan.
No, thanks, Councillor. Yeah, really good questions. So in terms of disparity with communal and curbside, you kind of already experienced it a little bit at the moment anyway with the 2 weekly. collection at the curbside. And having spoken to other councils, it's not something I've experienced an issue with. In terms of how it's gone. We do experience challenges with communal properties in terms of capacity in bin stores and how residents tend to use services. So extending that collection period would cause us more problems and more issues. So our hands are tied somewhat in terms of communal properties. In regards to Christmas, yes, a challenging time of year. I think the consultation response made that clear to us that maybe at certain times of year, apart from certain times of year, people might struggle with free weekly bin collections. We do and have always collected excess, a couple of bags extra after Christmas, and we had no sense or reason at the moment to change that. So yeah, that should answer that one. And yeah, and thank you, Kofi. Yeah, and we also have our HWRCs that people can access nearly every single day of the year, apart from Christmas and Boxing Day when they're closed. We get the concerns around fly tipping. We take fly tipping really seriously, and we do keep our eyes on the ball as much as possible with fly tipping. Councils who have gone free weekly haven't seen a big increase or any increase in fly tips. From memory, Bracknell, who recently introduced free weekly collections, have seen fly tipping reduced by just over 1%. East Devon have seen a higher reduction in fly tips since they introduced. I've seen a higher decrease in fly tips since they introduced free weekly collections. I think they're about 10% down on the year before they introduced free weekly. So we don't think free weekly collections will increase fly tipping. We haven't seen that happen elsewhere with councils we've spoken to. I'm a strong believer that the vast majority of our residents are responsible, and want to do the right thing. So fly tipping is generally undertaken by criminals. People, road traders. I don't think residents need to. I'm not considering residents are going to increase fly tipping. And the public litter bins, another good question and a good one we've had, one we've asked to other councils. They haven't experienced an issue as far as that. From what we're aware of, we haven't seen an issue, but it's only one we'll have to monitor when if the proposal goes forward.
Councillor Gawley.
Just on that last point, I think this comes back to that making sure the education and the communication piece is there, so that I would rather residents come and speak to us before they decide to fly tip or try to put it into a public waste bin, so we can, work any issues as and when. So again, I don't think it'd be an issue, but I think that makes it so clear that we have to get the communication bit right.
Thank you, Jason.
Sorry, Chair. Just to quickly add in terms of the overflowing bin, just to highlight that human behavior is quite mysterious, because we had a bin near Newbury Town Centre next to the soup kitchen that used to perennially overflow due to the demand. And we took the decision to take the bin away entirely. And since then, the local littering has totally disappeared. So sometimes you get the outcomes that you do not expect, and we hope that we can manage this change effectively. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Armitage, is it all right if I come back to you in a moment and take some other councillors first? Billy.
Well, my question was sort of answered on the fly tipping, but I've got another one on that. Do you publish rates of fly tipping monthly? You do. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor. Yeah, yes, we do. Numbers for 23-24 last week. Nationally, there's been an increase in fly tipping. I can't quite remember the percentage, but here in West Berkshire, we've seen a decrease of 8% over the same year.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor McKinnon and then Councillor Berwick.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I wanted to just ask Councillor Gurley a question. You mentioned, you referred to the fact that your boys are barely out of nappies, and I'm in the same position. And you made a comment there, I noted it down, that we're responsible for how we dispose of that waste. Can I just ask you what exactly you meant by that?
Yeah, sorry. What I mean by it is that's how we, bag it and bin it in terms of how we do it. And like, for me, it's around making sure, again, with a medical condition, I I make sure I dispose of that in a sensible way in my bin to cut down any issues with odour or potential, issues with pests, etc. So I make sure I package that away so it's clean and contained within my black bin.
But I guess the nappy waste can't go anywhere else than the black bin, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's why it's really important. We make sure we dispose of it in the right way within that black bin, i.e. putting it inside a nappy sack, for example, as opposed to not putting it in a nappy sack.
Okay. Councillor Gurley, if you asked me to defect to the Liberal Democrats and I said maybe, would you take that as a yes?
From you, Councillor McKinnon, always.
It's a serious point I'm making, I'm sure you can imagine. Question 37, the consultation response. You, in your presentation here, you said 5,000 responses, which was a record. I think it'd be a real shame then if the administration misrepresented the results of that consultation. 52% of respondents stated that their household could manage if non-recyclable black bin waste was collected every 3 weeks. That's what's in the report here on page 114. And you're including people who said maybe to that. I've got a massive problem with that. Maybe is not a yes, is it not?
So just to clarify, that's question 37.
Yep.
I think what that question actually says is maybe, although it might be a challenge at certain times of the year, which we've described, we have mitigations for already, and there would be no reason to change that. I think it's really important to highlight that this was a consultation on the draft strategy, and in that draft strategy, it highlights that free weekly bin collections is the best environmentally practical outcome. So I think it is thorough and proper to make sure we ask residents, across the board, and it's not just a yes or a no. And I think that's why that maybe is there. And we've discussed this evening how we can support those that are maybe to achieve that frequency of collection.
Would it not be more accurate, Councillor Gurley, not to include those who said maybe as could manage? Would that not have been a more honest representation of the consultation response to that question?
No, not necessarily. I think, we've been very clear in that question that maybe, although it might be a challenge at certain times of the year, I think that's a very clear outcome from the question, and we've got mitigations to tackle that.
Yeah, I find that quite a remarkable response. When is the strategy due to be decided? When is the administration going to make its decision on this?
It is, I think, on the full plan for the next April executive.
And in that case, can you tell me why the administration passed a budget on the 27th of February, including a saving from 3 weekly bin collections?
Yeah, I think, again, we've been quite open and honest and transparent with the direction of travel on this. So it would be remiss not to have included that as a line item in the budget as the direction of travel.
It would have been remiss not to include it as a line item in the budget before the decision's been made. Are you really telling me that's your position?
That is, I've said that we've been clear that this is a direction to travel in the waste strategy, and we wanted to make sure we included it for completeness.
That makes no sense to me, Councillor Gurley. I'm going to give you another opportunity to answer that question.
No, I think it's absolutely fine that we've put it in the budget as a direction of travel, as we've been completely open and honest with
I'm
what
very
that
sorry.
waste
I'm very
strategy
sorry.
says.
The budget is not a direction of travel. The budget is a hard and fast financial document, including savings, which the administration is going to make during the year. How can you say the decision has not been made when a budget has been passed 2 weeks ago, including a saving from 3 weekly bin collections?
I'll repeat what I've said. We've been open and honest with members of the public that this is the direction of travel we wanted to go in within the strategy, and that is reflected in the budget that was passed. If for whatever reason that direction changes, then that will become a pressure on the service, and we will have to find that in year. I think it's okay to set that expectation and communicate that as we have done. And like I say, for whatever reason, if that decision doesn't come off and changes, and isn't made to go forth, then we will accept that as a pressure in year on the service.
One more, Chairman.
Yeah,
and then I'm
sorry,
done.
I saw Councillor Brooks' hand and also Mr Winstanley. Did you want to come in on this point?
If I may, I was just going to repeat that the budget item was put in subject to approval at executive. If it wasn't taken, we have to find the savings from elsewhere within the budget. So it's really what Councillor Gawley said.
Can I just come back on that, Councillor Carver? Thank you. Nowhere in the budget papers did I see anything referring to subject to approval from the executive. That was not in the budget papers.
Councillor Brooks.
And you might see quite a lot of those because the practicalities of setting a budget has to anticipate certain things. So take a capital programme. Lots of slippage, moving of money during the year, lots of moving parts. Revenue budget is the same. So I am quite happy to say you anticipate what you believe will be agreed and adopted. It is still subject to adoption. The fact we don't write that in the lines of the budget, I don't think you did in the previous administration either. So it might be a recommendation from the Scrutiny Commission that it's done in future, and executive will receive that. But frankly, I think it's not inappropriate.
I'd like to come back on that, Councillor Carver, and then I'll give my final point on this, and then I'll give way. Councillor Brooks, can you see how residents might see this as it's been passed already in the budget before the waste management strategy is passed by executive, and they just think it's already a done deal? It's a stitch up. And should we not treat residents with a little bit more credit?
Councillor Brooks, do you want to come back on that?
Disagree with the phraseology and the content and the meaning, and nothing more to add.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, last one, Councillor Carver.
Beg your pardon, Kofi, did you want to come in on this point?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Just to add a bit of data context to it, in the sense that the waste budget annually is well over 20 million, and the savings allocation put in for a potential decision being taken to support 3 weekly was in the region of 150,000. So we are quite talking about something that's in the region of 0.5%. 0.5% of the annual budget. So it's not like we've put in £1 million against this. So this is something that in any given year can reasonably be accommodated by efficiencies within the waste budget. And we've got experience because we're dealing with changeable waste volumes. We can use, for example, communications with residents to depress how much they are throwing away, which would have implications for any gains we can make. So all that to say that there's some method to how this has been approached, because had they not gone into the budget tool, there could be an element where a decision is taken in April and we've missed the opportunity to move with the times and protect the council from bigger cost exposure, for example, linked to the emissions trading scheme, which would be quite costly for our ratepayers. Thank you, Chair.
I've got a big problem with that answer. I'm sorry. It's all very well saying we got a waste budget of 20 million, so 150,000 is not huge. At the budget meeting, we had dozens of people from resource centres sitting here in protest at a cut of £500,000. This is a significant saving that was part of the budget, and it is not good enough for members of the executive or officers to say, well, £150,000 is not that much. It is an awful lot in terms of the revenue budget. I take Councillor Brooks's point about capital. It is a great deal. It was in that budget as a hard and fast saving. It was not in there subject to approval. It looks like a stitch up, and those resource centre staff deserve a little bit better from the council by saying, well, £150,000 is not that much in terms of the draft waste budget. That's a resource centre, really. So I'm going to make my final point, because I've occupied this quite a bit. Bins and roads, McKinnon, I was told. when I first got into local politics. Bins and roads. That's what every single resident sees from the council. Okay. Now, lots of other residents see other services as well. I'm fortunate enough not to need the adult social care service or the children's social care service. Sure, my children go to local schools, but that comes from the DSG. Bins and roads. This is a serious degradation of the two most visible services that all of our residents enjoy. And my question to Councillor Gurley is, would this not have been better served if you'd put this in your manifesto in 2023 and got the residents' direct consent? You're very keen to tell me that the residents voted for football at Faraday Road and all this stuff. Why not give the residents a chance to vote on this?
So, I mean, I dispute the fact that it's a degradation of service. I think we've displayed this evening that we've actually increased the services that are available with regards to recycling. There are 9 streams, of recycling at the curbside. And I think it's around moving around where that waste goes, out of the black bin into the recycling, increasing capacity. I think we've demonstrated that this evening, that yes, changing the frequency, but actually we've increased what can be recycled at the curbside. Only in the last few months, we've increased pots, tubs and trays. We've increased batteries at the curbside. That is an improvement and a change in that service. I dispute the fact that it's a degradation of service.
Okay, Councillor Bowick and then Councillor Dick.
Thank you, Chairman. Going to have a couple of points. I'm going to make a couple of points, but the first one I want to make is that I guess it's a question because I'm not quite sure what this paper where it's heading really. The strategy document, immense it is, talks about exploring and investigating and actual, in terms of changes, which is what we discussed this evening, I really struggle to find in that document what the significant changes are. And then we hear that if we go to if council, if the executive approve a 3-weekly collection, so on and so forth. So the reality is that I have been illuminated to some extent by discussion, because it's quite clear that the administration is going to move towards a 3-week collection. And for Councillor Gurley to suggest, to hint even, let alone say outright that it's not a degradation of service is frankly laughable. Let me tell you, Councillor, that on the first week that a resident is expecting their bin to be collected and it's still outside on the street, the phones will be ringing off the hook, believe me. And for you to see, when you say that, I know this because I've been there. And when you say that you've been perfectly open with residents, I don't doubt that that's the intention, but trust me, people are not out there listening to what you're saying, searching the internet, reading the paper to try and find out that their 2-weekly bin collection is assured for the future. So that's not really a credible statement. Now, if there's one thing that might ameliorate people's anger when they suddenly find that their bins are going to be collected only every 3 weeks, is a suggestion that there might be a saving from that. Well, you haven't achieved a saving until you've negotiated that with Veolia. I had to mention this before in the chamber. And if it is only 150,000, if it's only 150,000 and you can't achieve it, and you might as well, then you'll be able to find the saving as well. Well, why are you going to 2 weeks then? Going to 3 weeks? You're forcing, you're hoping to force residents to do better at recycling when you could have spent that money on better education, because that will have the same effect. Don't suggest that this is not a degradation of service. It totally is.
Councillor Gawley.
I mean, I'm going to have to say it again, but I do disagree with that comment, and that's
Well, you
okay.
do.
It's absolutely fine to
right.
It's absolutely fine to disagree with this, but I think we've demonstrated this evening how the service has evolved since 1996. And the graph showed it. I can bring the graph back up again and show you how that service has evolved since 1996.
It's not a degradation service. I can quote you.
Sorry, can Councillor Gawley be allowed to continue? Thank you.
It's a change in that service, and it's a change in how that service is being delivered at the curbside. Because, like I said, we've now introduced pots, tubs, and trays, which hasn't happened before.
Sorry, can you not interrupt, please? Allow Councillor Gawley to give his response.
I think we've heard quite a lot of it.
We've introduced pots, tubs, and trays at the curbside. That's a new service. We've introduced battery collections at the curbside. That's a new service. We've introduced food waste very recently at the curbside. That's a new service. It's around changing where that waste goes and making sure that we work with residents, as we've demonstrated tonight, what we want to do and what we're currently doing and how that will continue to support this change. Change is difficult. I get that. Change is hard. And it is, and Councillor McKinnon's absolutely right. I know I look after both the potholes, the roads and the bins. So I'm fully aware of the impact on residents. I'm a resident myself. So I get it, but I'm also believe that by doing this, we are being efficient in our service. So we can use that money in better ways. We can increase our recycling rates, which is a critical part of why we're doing this. It's not one dimensional as we're trying to hear this evening. It is multifaceted. It's also about a carbon reduction by reducing the need for our vehicles to be out doing as much collecting work. It's about changing where that waste goes, and that waste is time, it's money, it's physical tangible waste at the curbside. It's reducing all of those wastes down and making a more efficient and lean service that delivers carbon reduction, increased recycling rate, and yes, a financial saving to this council. And I think that's a really positive step forward, but I get the challenges.
Thank you. I was going to go to Councillor Dick, but I think Councillor Reid, you did have your hand up and I forgot you, so I beg your pardon. Then I'll come to Councillor Dick and then Councillor Vickers.
Apologies, Councillor Dick. Again, I think it's a great report. I think it's ambitious. It's good to see that we're increasing recycling rates, reducing waste generation, minimise carbon emissions, more efficient, promotion of initiatives, more susceptible. However, I also did pick up that if we don't hit these targets for the future, potentially we're leading to statutory non-compliance. What that statutory non-compliance means to the council and to us as ratepayers would be interesting to hear.
Sorry, are you able to confirm what that statutory compliance is you're referring to?
No, if we were not to achieve statutory compliance within our recycling or our waste targets, what does that mean for us as an authority and also us as taxpayers? I believe there are things called like landfill tax, etc., that we need to be aware of.
Mr. Vaughan.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So the emerging, I guess, legislation around compliance will probably be extended producer responsibility, where we receive funding via producers of packaging waste. The amount we receive from EPR does depend on how effective and efficient our service is. And that's determined by both numerous factors and complicated formulas that DEFRA and their programme manager that deals with. The first payment we've received this year does show that we are doing rather well compared to other authorities in terms of how effective and efficient our service is. And I think this proposal takes us on the next step to being even more efficient and effective, because we can show and demonstrate that we are recycling as much as we possibly can and helping residents to do that from the doorstep.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Dick.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I've looked at the body language around the room. We're all a little bit tired of people restating point after point after point. I said at the beginning I thought it was a good report and we're travelling in a good direction. perhaps Councillor Gurley and Mr. Warren would invite my two colleagues, and they are my colleagues over there, to write to them with any suggestions that would actively improve the waste strategy for our residents. And perhaps we can now move on and share our time evenly with the other major items we have on our agenda. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Dick. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you. I won't say much more. I just wanted to basically support what Councillor Gold has been saying, in that, you know, the stats that we've been showing this evening have shown that residents do want to work with us, that they do support our strategy. We had an excellent response to the consultation. We're actually, I mean, the example that Kofi gave of removing a bin and the litter, or actually didn't disappear, but it wasn't just sort of dropped there because people said, well, there was a bin and there should be a bin. And just as we go up to 3 weekly, so people will have to think a little bit more about their waste and hopefully not just put it in the appropriate bin. We hope they'll do that. But when it comes to food and things that they have been putting in the black bin, they don't just throw food away unnecessarily. They think about what they could be doing with that food. You know, they don't just throw bananas away when they could be used. So there's lots of positive things that people can be encouraged and focused to think about by knowing that they can't just push things into that bin because it's only going to be emptied every 3 weeks. So they're working with us and we're helping them to actually, for all sorts of reasons, as well as carbon reduction and reducing landfill, etc., that we're actually improving life for not just themselves, but for the rest of the residents. So I think this is an excellent consultation and we're not bullying people. We've been listening to people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. Councillor Amatharaj.
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity. I was going to ask a question on the receptacles, but just make a quick observation on the recycling one. I know Kofi and Councillor Gowley mentioned about educating people. I appreciate that one. There should be a lot of education going into this, but also it's not just about education, but also monitoring. So can I request and ask the officers to look into the monitoring aspect of this policy when it is implemented in the weeks and months following this, to see that how our residents are accepting it or even rejecting it. So we should be able to not just leave it and throw it away as a policy to them. We should be able to monitor it and take it from there. Going away from that one, I just wanted to understand the receptacles option, page 46, Mr. Vaughan and Kofi. There is mention of choosing option D, E, F, which is option D is replace the reusable sacks with V-lid pen. And then option E is supply residents with the tribolic containers. And option F is no change, which I think it's BAU. So can you please expand on two things, like what are these actually? I'm not sure about, for a layman like me, what is trolley box containers means, and then the important question of when do we see this happening? Is it going to be like a phased approach, or is it going to be someone requesting for, or is it going to be a complete replacement of the existing green bins? So if you could just expand on that one, it would be really great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. First of all, monitoring of the change if it goes ahead. Yes, certainly. The collection crews will be out and about monitoring, as well as their supervisors and our waste officers will be very keen and on top of that as much as we can. With the recycling containers, yeah, appreciate trolley block isn't probably well known. Councillor Dick referred to it earlier on. It's a trolley that contains two or three boxes and a bag. Your capacity is restrained. You can only have the one box or number of boxes that fit on the trolley to present your recycling. It's widely used in Wales for their recycling, which is why we were looking at it, and it did well in the consultation from residents' responses. So we'll continue to look at that option. Whereas the wheelie bin is just a similar bin that we use already for garden waste or for the black bin waste that we possibly replaced a sack with, because it gives us more capacity. But obviously there's a capital cost for any of those changes that we need to consider.
Thank you. Okay.
So, Chairman, Mr. Vaughan, I also wanted to understand: is it going to be a replacement, or it's going to be a new?
Yeah. So obviously we'll wait for the strategy to see how it goes through, and then we'll start looking at that as a separate project.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Are there any specific recommendations that we would like to make as a result of the discussion we've just had, members? I'm sure much of it will have been captured by Mr. Oliver, but if there's anything in particular that you want to make sure. Councillor Reid.
I do wonder whether we should get a report in the future of the waste breakdown in particular, if it will promote wrong materials going into recycling, things like black pots and film, etc. We don't want people just going, oh, do you know what, I'll just put it in there instead. So that would be good to be able to understand after a period of time, you know, how successful are we being in recycling, or are we getting inappropriate materials now being put in the recycling?
Yeah, good point. Councillor McKinnon.
I would like a general recommendation, not just to the waste team, but to all services in the council when it comes to consultations. A maybe response is not a yes.
Okay. Any other members?
Let's make a good effort to represent those responses honestly.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKinnon. Anything else? Kofi, would you like to come back on that?
No, Chair, not specifically. I just want to make a comment, and that is to thank members for actively engaging in this topic. We see how meaningful it is to you, and we will take the feedback to go and refine and make sure that implementation is as successful as can be, provided the decision is taken to go ahead with that. And just finally to say that I live in a separate district which has the 3 weekly collection system. And when it was first mooted, it was met with similar levels of anxiety. There was a petition. People thought rats would become our neighbors, but it's been done successfully and people are pleasantly surprised. So I would urge people to embrace it with an air of wait and see and some positivity, because there might be people looking back and saying, I wish I had given this more of a chance. And also to know that as officers, if we wanted an easier life, we would be happy to stick with the 2 weekly, because this is a major change that needs lots and lots of planning. But we are recommending it because we believe in it. We believe it's right for the environment, right for our ratepayers. I know the Adult Resource Centre was mentioned in the debate. That is worth noting that if some of these changes are not taken and ETS comes in, then we'll be exposed to in the region of £500,000 of avoidable costs. So this is a change which, if we embrace and go forward with it, will protect essential services for our most vulnerable. Thank you, Chair.
Any other recommendations, colleagues? Okay. Thank you very much for coming along and making your presentation. Thank you very much, colleagues, for all your questions. So you're free to go now if you wish to, but you're free to remain if you'd like to as well.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Right, moving on next to the Sports Hub task and finish group. Just like to make people aware that this is in the public domain already, and there is no constitutional basis for any officer to stop us doing so. And if they believe that there is, then they need to provide evidence of that.
Chair, can I?
I've been the chair. I've been asked to move this to part 2, and the advice that I've been given here is any discussion of the scrutiny report will need to be covered under part 2 for the following reasons. Paragraph 1, information relating to an individual. Paragraph 2, information which is likely to reveal the identity of an individual. Paragraph 3, information relating to the financial or business affairs of a particular person, including the authority holding that information. So those are the reasons I've been given. I haven't been given any information as to why this is, which individuals. A number of issues were raised with me by the interim chief executive and the monitoring officer last Monday, which I went back to them with. I shared those concerns with members of the task and finish group, and we made the unanimous decision to proceed with publication. As I've said, there is no constitutional basis not to. So this is the advice that I've been given. I'm not prepared to propose we move to part 2. So over to you, members.
Chair, I'd like to make a proposal regarding this item.
Yes.
The recommendations in the report are good, and we don't want to lose them. We think they're going to be valuable to the council. But I do feel that the report can't be discussed as is. I've got some serious concerns about how it's been presented and some of the content in it. I also have concerns about the process used by the Task and Finish group, because I don't believe the right of reply was given to all stakeholders. So natural justice isn't being served. Therefore, I propose a motion that this item is not discussed tonight and is deferred so that further work can be undertaken. And I would like you to put that to the vote, please.
Okay, thank you. So that's the first proposal I've received. Is there a seconder for Councillor Pattenden's proposal? Councillor Vickers?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second that proposal for the reasons that Councillor Pattenden put forward.
Okay. I'll seek advice. I've read out the advice from officers here, but I've had a proposal for a deferral instead. That was the first proposal that I heard. So I'll move to a vote on that.
Chairman, before that happens, I missed the declarations of interest at the start.
Yes.
And I'd like to declare an interest here. If Councillor Pattinson's motion fails, there may be a further motion to move this to part 2.
Okay.
And in advance of that, I'd like to declare an interest.
Yep.
As one of the individuals, one of the former executive members and officers who I believe have been libelled by this report, I have a direct...
I think that's a very serious accusation to make.
No, I
would ask why you think that.
I believe I have been libelled by this report.
You're not mentioned in the report, Councillor McKinnon, with the greatest respect.
No, I am. I'm mentioned in the report by name and also as part of the previous executive. So one of the items in the report says that either the council misled the High Court or the executive misled the council and the public. I was part of that executive. I'm
Doesn't
named.
name you.
But I'm part of the executive, Councillor Carver. The interest I'm declaring is that I have a direct financial interest in how widely this report is publicised tonight. So if the report does, if there is a proposal to submit this to part 2, I have a direct financial interest in that and I will not be voting on it.
Okay. Councillor Dick, I saw your hand.
Obviously, I'm a member of this group. Thank you for the kind remark to begin, but I can't leave unchallenged the fact that you're saying that this group didn't work properly and appropriately. This is my second one of these, and we absolutely did. And all we have done is report what we have found. We invited all the witnesses that were advised as appropriate. We listened to them carefully. We've written what we found. And on that note, we were determined that it should be heard. We've not had any experience, any of us, longer serving or shorter, at a report like this being written in good faith by members with the support of officers being blocked in this way. So I defend our honour, sir. If members want to discuss it on to part 2, I'm not going to burst into flames about that, but I'm concerned about the principle of scrutiny.
Thank you. I've just been informed I shouldn't be taking any more debate until I've taken a vote on that first proposal. Is that correct, Nikki? Okay. Right, so we've had a proposal to defer the item. One thing I will say, there are recommendations in here about the playing pitch strategy, which is due to be finalised in June. So if this was deferred to the July scrutiny, those recommendations that are in there, it would be too late for those to inform the playing pitch strategy, which would be a shame. That's why we wanted it to come to this meeting in order to inform that strategy.
Could there be a special scrutiny just for this item?
We could, yeah. Well, so if we defer, then that's something that we can consider, I think. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a vote. Councillor Pattenden has proposed deferral. Councillor Vickers has seconded that. All those in favour? All those against? Okay, so that carries. So that item will be deferred to the next meeting. I would like, supplementary to that, I'd like to propose that we do have a special meeting. Is that seconded? Yeah, councillor Reid, can we vote on that, please? Okay, anyone against? Okay, right, so we'll have a special meeting then. And I take allegations of libel against the five of us extremely seriously.
Thank you, Chair. I mean,
I take libel extremely seriously.
Well, you're the one who's accused us of libel,
No,
so
no, the report
note
said that the
you've
executive
had your say.
misled the
Thank you,
council.
councillor McKinnon. Councillor Vickers, you had begun
I
to
just
speak.
wanted to say that the report is extremely well written. It's an excellent report, and that our motion is to make sure that, you know, that the recommendations, most of them are implemented, and we're just concerned that we wouldn't have used the word libel, but we just wanted to make sure that there isn't anything in there that gets in the way of those recommendations going forward. So that's our concern. So we very much want good to come out of this report, because there's an awful lot of good.
When you say our, councillor Vickers, who do you mean by that?
What did I?
Okay, so you're talking about us collectively. You said our. I didn't know who you meant by our.
Well, those of us that are
Yeah.
wanting to defer this item is the R.
Okay, thank you very much, councillor Vickers. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you for letting me speak, and as not being a member of your commission. There are some very good recommendations in there. I recognise some that were in the London Road Industrial Estate Task Group report from 5 or 6 years ago that I was on. Where I'm very, very, very troubled is how we have almost verbatim reproduced in that report statements made by witnesses who probably didn't know that they would be reported almost verbatim, and I cite the rugby club as an example. Statements made in the report that your task group has written, as opposed to officers writing it, could be considered commercial in confidence about the financial standing of that organisation. That report needed to be very, very carefully considered, and that is why I'm grateful that this has been deferred, so we can consider that. Sadly, it is now out in the public domain, which could cause considerable embarrassment to the people probably who wrote it. So it's a bad place we've ended up in, and we can make so much more of this from the good work you've done if we can get the recommendations through without statements in a report that I've not seen in all the time I've been a councillor, which is now 33 years, to make statements that I wasn't convinced could be backed up by the evidence. But I'm grateful that it's been deferred, because there are witnesses that were in the terms of reference to be called as witnesses, but were not called as witnesses by the task group. We have to put this right, I feel, Chairman, and I know you'll want to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. Okay, thank you very much for that. So moving on, appointment of task and finish groups. So we've agreed that we will have a project management task and finish group about care director and iTrent, and councillor Reid has very kindly agreed to chair that. We did discuss briefly at the last meeting about who might like to be on that. And we've had volunteers, councillors Amatharaj and Pattenden. Are you still both happy to serve on that? I did go, sorry, Councillor Dick. Oh, right, great. I'll put you down. Thank you very much, Councillor Dick. And also Councillor Abbs has offered to be on that group as well. So that would give us 1, 2, 3. That would give us 5 people. There's no reason why we can't have extras if people are particularly interested in doing it. And that always means that we can achieve quorum, which is always a benefit.
Chairman,
So-
I have a member of my group in mind. I just need to run it past him.
Yeah.
I'll hopefully get back to you tomorrow on that, if
Okay,
that's
great.
okay with you.
Yeah, and you have Councillor Dick from your group who's volunteered. Yeah. Councillor Reid, did you want to say anything about this as chair of that particular group?
No, I think I know who Councillor McKinnon is referring to, and he'll be most welcome. I'll touch base with you afterwards, but he's a very knowledgeable and challenging gentleman. So I think he'd be very good.
Great. Good. So I believe that can start work as soon as Mr. Oliver's ready to do so. Yeah. So I'll let you liaise then about when you want to start having those meetings. We've got terms of reference already for that. Good. Okay.
One question, but I've looked at the programme for that, the group, and it's something that I've said repeatedly on other groups as well. This obviously is very much internal, more than perhaps a lot of other task and finish groups, but I still think we need to consult some key people from the other end of the telescope. So people, you know, members of the public, local organisations who have been involved in these projects, and let's see what they think about them from the outside. I think that's important.
Yeah, good suggestion. Sorry.
Sorry, just to clarify that if you are having any third parties come to your task and finish group, those proposals should be put through to the monitoring officer for permission for third parties to be involved in internal scrutiny.
I live and learn. Thank you.
Great. Okay, moving on. Scrutiny Commission Work Programme. Members to note that the published executive forward plan is unchanged from the last meeting. Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Martha, your Health Scrutiny Committee update.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Health Scrutiny Committee has just recently met on the 11th of March, and we looked at oral health and dentistry and received report from Public Health and Bob ICB, and they responded to members' questions. It was a very interesting discussion. As you'll appreciate, there's an awful lot of concern about particularly the access to dentistry in this area. Actions for further work have been identified as a result of the meeting, and there's a request for this to return to the Health Scrutiny in September of this year. We also had a report from South Filton Ambulance Service. This was an update progress on the Care Quality Commission Improvement Programme that it had to go through, and they provided an overview of their services and their performance in West Berkshire. Actually, I don't think many of us, we weren't really aware that there was a problem with our ambulance service. And in fact, fortunately, obviously, most of us haven't had to use it. But it was a really, really interesting discussion, and we were really impressed by the report and the fact that due to the attention they're given to their service, they are now, I think in January, said they had the quickest response rate from anywhere in the country. I haven't got the details in front of me, but they actually had really improved extremely well. So they're waiting for a reassessment from the Care Quality Commission of their status now. So we will be getting a report back from them as well, just to see where they are, again, in about 6 months' time. But if you have a chance to, and it is a public meeting, Health Scrutiny, if you'd like to look at that section, I would, if you've got time, ask you to look at that on our services, because you learn a lot about our ambulance service, and you will feel very comfortable about the service you'll get if you ever have to use it. We've also currently got a task group underway reviewing children's mental health and emotional well-being in West Berkshire. We've met twice, we've had 2 sessions, and the final session with witnesses will be later this month. So evidence being gathered from various partners, including health, education, the council and the voluntary sector. And one further session is scheduled for later this month, and a report will be completed following the sessions, which will go to a future Health Scrutiny Committee. And again, this has been a very, I think, a worthwhile task group. Councillor Dick serves on it. I don't think anybody else here does, but there's 7 of us in all, and it's, I think hopefully we'll get some good recommendations out of it. The next Health Scrutiny Committee is on the 17th of June, and the agenda is in the process of being finalised. It will include dementia and an update from continuing healthcare. A draft work programme for 25-26 is also being reviewed, and that will be reviewed at the next Health Scrutiny. And members can submit suggestions, and also members of the public can, for future agenda items, and all proposals will be put through the prioritisation tool before being scheduled on the draft work programme. If anybody's got any question? No?
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. Any questions or comments? Okay, I look forward to seeing the results of your task and finish group. I know Councillor Taylor has served on that and said it was extremely interesting.
Yes, and his contribution, everybody's been contributing really well, and the witnesses have been very impressive, haven't they? So we hope some good work will come out of it. Thank you.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. And I think we should congratulate Councillor Dick for his diligent service on task and finish groups, having chaired the COVID one and been on the sports hub and the children's mental health and now the project management. So we might strike a small medal for you at some point.
Chairman, if it's small, I will refuse it.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. Thank you for your important work, and please convey our thanks to the members of your committee. Right, now moving on to item 11, Scrutiny Commission Work Programme. So the notes I've been given here, members to note that the published executive forward plan is unchanged from the last meeting, so it has not been included in the agenda papers. Do members have any comments on the work programme? Yes, Councillor Amatharaj.
Thank you, Chairman. I think you will recollect in the last February one, I raised to one on the Transport Advisory Group, Councillor Godley is here. I know we have an action and we will follow up. The aspect of it is focus, sorry. I mean, to look at the safer schools, safer streets program. And the other one is, I recollect, I think it's slightly gone, or I'm not able to find out. We used to have the agenda or the task group point for the housing needs block or something related to the housing task group. I'm not sure whether we still intend to do something. What I mean by is like the point I raised in the last scrutiny as well, to see how sovereign are the other housing providers are managing the assets. One example I pointed out last time as well, and this time I'll bring it again, that is the new developments particularly, there are aspects of social affordable homes being allocated during the planning stage as a condition. But during the allocation or after post that, they are working with the housing providers and they are saying, and I have an example with me, that they are not able to handle that. And hence what happens is they are going back to the developers and saying that we can't, council as a council can't take them. So we are losing those affordable homes. So I'm not sure whether this is becoming a trend. I'm checking with the portfolio lead and Councillor Gaines is coming back to me on that one. But in the perspective I'm trying to bring in here is like, we need to look at the housing needs and particularly the sovereign aspect. I'm not pinpointing specifically sovereign, but the housing providers across the district. So just wanting to bring that thought, like if we cannot accommodate this year, maybe at least next year.
Yes, absolutely. And we have been in the actions from previous meetings, we've got some housing mentioned in there because I've spoken to Councillor Codling as Chair of Health and Wellbeing and also to Councillor Gaines as portfolio holder. And I know there have been discussions going on in other forums about this. But yes, it is very important. I'm conscious in my ward, there are a number of houses that are being sold off by social housing providers, particularly in rural communities where there are many generations of families living there. And they're very worried that the young adults in their families will no longer be able to afford to live in those communities. And as we know, developers don't always meet their obligation for social rent housing on new developments. And there is a concern that there's going to be an attrition of those social housing units. So yes, I agree. We definitely need to make sure that we keep the housing on the agenda and we need to factor that in. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Gawley, did you want to come back on the point Councillor Amatharaj mentioned again? I know we've had correspondence about the Transport Advisory Group.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this topic at TAG about a month or 6 weeks ago. And I think, obviously, Councillor Amatharaj came along to that. So I guess if there's anything more that you still have concerns about, then either we can pick it up outside of this meeting, Anthony, and look in it, or whether you do genuinely believe it's a topic that needs to come to scrutiny. I'll leave that up to the Commission, but I'm happy to have that conversation outside, continue that further from TAG if and help where I can with officers to get you the answers that you would like.
And I think you also mentioned, Councillor Gawley, that you could invite some teachers along to one of the TAG meetings and have a discussion with them.
We did, but it is currently part 2, so we couldn't actually. I think that was the desire, and we couldn't at that time. But I think it is a conversation that we can continue at.
Yeah.
Unless there is a burning desire for it to come to scrutiny. I'll leave that up to the Commission to decide, but happy to have that conversation, Councillor Amarfaraj.
Great. Did you want to come back on that? Yeah.
Yes, quickly. Thanks, Stuart. The point being, like the TAG one was not, it's invitation only. So it's based on whoever wants to come on to that TAG program and raise their points or ask questions. So it's either like we can discuss offline, but it in terms of that TAG itself as a forum to raise awareness about safer schools or safer street subject is limited. That's what I understood from that meeting. But it is productive. That is, we can still ask questions, whoever is interested. But I was looking at scrutiny as a committee to look at specific aspects, not to take over aspects from TAG, but also looking at a subject like safer schools like that. So that's the whole point, not to take away what is happening in TAG.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other comments on the work programme? As we mentioned earlier, 2 of the items about special educational needs we're going to hold over until July because of the inspections. We've got an item on transformation programme, so it'd be great to hear from Gabrielle Mencini about that. And the library service, which was talked about earlier. Councillor Boak, you said what was happening about that. That's on the agenda for then as well. And then obviously the various financial reports that we usually receive. We've got community safety in September. And of course, we will need to wait and see whether or not there's any restructure of the Scrutiny Commission and what impact that would have on the work programme. But obviously everything that's in there would presumably get divvied up between those various new committees. Great. Good. Recommendations tracker. So Mr. Oliver put something in the, you okay?
No, sorry. No. Communicating with my colleague.
Okay. Okay, that's all right. So we've talked in the past about the fact that we ought to have a communications tracker. So we obviously make recommendations to executive. They can choose whether or not to adopt them. But what we don't do very well is to then keep an eye on the recommendations that executive do accept and then examine whether or not those have been implemented over time and what impact they might have had. So Mr. Oliver has done some research into what other local authorities do, and we thought the one that's here in your agenda pack was probably a good example that we could have a look at. So it includes meeting date and agenda, scrutiny recommendation, cabinet member, lead officer, department, and then the executive response, implementation status and review date. So it would essentially capture information about what has been agreed by executive, when they think it will be implemented by, and also when we as scrutiny think it would be appropriate to then review it and see what kind of progress has been made.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. Would it be appropriate in that same grid to ask the portfolio holder, etc., about their view of the impact before we take a view?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
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 Because that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Do members have any other comments? Sorry, Councillor Pattenden.
Yeah, I'm surprised Councillor Dick didn't mention it, but I wonder whether there's overlap here between the actions list that we have earlier and we discussed before, and if somehow if we were to magically merge the two together, then we'd end up with some incredible system for keeping track of all recommendations and progress status that would be I think hopefully useful to everybody in the Commission.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds sensible. Any other comments? Yeah, councillor Reid.
Just that we should also keep a log of all the recommendations not accepted by the executive, so we don't keep bashing our heads against that wall.
Good point. Okay. Well, are you happy if myself and Mr. Oliver have a look at this then and see how we can incorporate the issues that you've raised, and then we'll try and come up with something? Yeah. Fantastic. And if you find any other good examples, do let us know, because we're always looking for ways to try and improve these things. We did look for other examples which we didn't think were quite so good as this one, to be quite honest. So, yeah, we want to make sure we get it right. Good. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our agenda this evening. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for your participation. Thank you to members of the public who were present, who are watching at home. Hope you found it interesting. Thank you to officers for presenting. And the next meeting is in July, and we will have a special meeting about the Sports Hub in the meantime. Thank you, everyone. Meeting closed.